Hello, guys. Thanks for joining us this evening. I know it's that time where everybody's expecting the Prime Minister to let us know what's happening with the lockdown and what have you. And I think it has a particular interest to all of us who are involved in the world of snooker. But I think you can expect anything to happen. So this evening we've got Fergal O'Brien and Jordan Brown, both tour professionals, and we're going to have a little chat with them about their careers and where they're going. And you can send in some questions if you want. And we'll crack on here. We'll just try and get the boys on the screen here. We'll start with the old man first. If we can find him.
You got me.
Let's bring you in there, Jordan. Retime here.
Can you see me?
Hang on a second, lads. I'm just going to try and bring you in. All right, we're all in there. Can you hear me?
Good evening.
Hello. Good evening.
Fergal, can you hear me?
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay,
I can't see Fergal. I can see you, Dave.
You can't hear Fergal?
I can't see Fergal. I can hear him.
Right. Okay. Well, that is possibly your end, but as long as the viewers can see everything there, Jordy, maybe you want to fiddle around with your video connection there, maybe see what you can do. Anyway, lads, thanks for joining us. We're just going to have a wee chat for about an hour this evening. I think the Prime Minister is just about to come on and tell the nation where we're going here with the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we're all waiting to hear whether we can walk out the doors or go to the clubs. I don't think we're expecting anything good, but you never know. Anything can happen. But guys, this is all on YouTube, this stream, so you can have a look at it tomorrow.
Okay.
Or you can have a look at it in about 10 years or whatever ago. Anyway, we'll say, Fergal, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
We're going to start with you, and we're going to talk a wee bit about your career. Now, you turned pro in '91, so you've been on the tour for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
Does it feel like it?
Not really. No, it's actually went very quick. It's only when somebody says it to you that you actually, when you start doing the maths, like 30 is a lot. But no, it's went very quick, to be honest.
What do you think about, as I say, you turned pro in '81, so it's nearly 30 years. This is 3 decades. I've just had a little look at your timeline there and what you've done. And, your first sort of decade, you sort of gradually climbed the rankings. You did quite well, actually, through the course of that period of time, up the first 10 years, up to 2000.
Yeah.
You got yourself in the top 30, 32. Fairly well, fairly quickly, and then obviously you got in the top 16 as well, and you juggled a little bit in the middle there, in that second phase, if you want to call it. I don't know what you call it, but if I look at 3 decades, I sort of look at it as a beginning, a middle, and an ending.
No. The 30 years, I call it the first half.
The first half.
When I'm dead, I've stopped playing.
It's gone then after that there. So we'll just touch. Let's just have a little look at it then. Obviously you want to, look, you can play 30 years, you can play 20 years, whatever. You did win a ranking event. You got the final of a couple of others. You did win a couple of other events, which would probably be ranking events these days. With what's on the tour and what have you. So you've always got. You've got close. You've beaten the best of them too. I don't need to mention any names, but you've beaten Ronnie. You've beaten a lot of top big players, and you wouldn't have been on the tour for 30 years if you didn't have it. In that sense. But when you sort of look over your career, if you look at whatever way you want to look at it, the first 10 years, the second, whatever, what sort of reflection do you have on it have you done enough? Could you have done more?
I think as you get old, obviously you learn more about yourself, and there's definitely I'll always give myself credit. I definitely worked hard, so I wouldn't say, if I didn't do better, it wasn't through a lack of effort, but maybe my effort could have been more constructive or smarter. There's probably times maybe actually I over practiced or maybe over prepared for tournaments and went away maybe a little bit stale and hadn't peaked so much. So at the time I thought I was doing best, but yes, looking back, was giving advice to a younger self, would say maybe coming up to terms, just ease off a little piece. Or I certainly feel even the last few years I should have been playing people more often. I played a bit too much on my own. And generally throughout my career, when I've had my best results or enjoyed playing the most, whether it be from the early days when I went to London or other successful times, the majority of my practice was against people. Whereas the last few years, maybe because sometimes of my own choice, other times because the Joe Delaney's, Michael Judd, Patrick Wallace, Colin Gilchrist, who I used to practice with, were gone. So bar maybe Ken Doherty, you were playing a hell of a lot on your own. And I find if you play too much on your own, you either get quite technical, or if you play too much on your own, you actually kind of nearly do your head in a little piece. So, even going forward for whatever's left of my career, and that's why the last 6 months or so I've been going up to Antrim quite a lot and just been there for a few days, and then it's been perfect because literally every day I get to play either Jordan, Michael Giorgio, or Mark Gallen, and particularly Mark has been playing absolutely fantastic. So even if you're getting beaten, you're coming home a lot sharper, and it just identifies the areas you need to work on your game.
And so you look at, I'm just looking over your career here. You had, just get you back in a wee second, Jordan. We're not leaving you out. We get, just look at back. It's sort of like, no, that's okay. We'll get you back in a wee second. It's sort of like, it took you nearly 10 years to win that ranking event.
Yeah.
So when you won that, did you feel as if you've really, really done something any different than normal, or what did it take out of you? What did you have to do to get it?
Well, it's funny, as I said, obviously the first few years when I turned pro, it was the year they opened the game up. So there was 700 turned pro literally overnight. So to get to the first year, to get to the Crucible, you probably had to win about 12 matches. So after the first year, I was 192. Second year is up to 100, which was like good progress. And funny, with 1999, I remember it quite well for two specific reasons. Firstly, a couple of weeks before, my grandfather had died, and he was the one at Christmas when I was 8. He bought me like an 8x4 tail. So he used to practice a lot on that. So maybe it felt a little bit of, I don't know, inspiration or destiny as such, because there was certainly a lot of matches went very close, and I was literally a couple of shots away from losing. But the big drive was obviously April 11th was when I won the tournament. But on February the 24th, they announced the wildcards for the Irish Masters in Gops, Benson Hedges Irish Masters back there, which is obviously a massive event. I'd have played it in 94, 98. And I didn't get a wildcard, and they actually picked Michael Judge. And to be fair, Michael's a great guy, a great player, but at the time I was ranked 20 and he was ranked 60. And I just felt it didn't make sense, or it was unfair that I'd been overlooked. Now, you could argue it was giving Michael a chance. But anyway, that date was February 24th, and I walked home from the club. It took about a half an hour to walk home. And that, on the walk home, I kind of, in my head, wrote and rewrote my speech for what I was going to say after I won the tournament. Basically on the lines of, I can't remember at the time, something on the lines of, here's me winning a ranking event, and I'm not deemed worthy of a place in a tournament in my own country, so to speak.
Okay.
So, now, obviously, and rightly so, when I won the tournament, obviously, I never mentioned that, because obviously that's quite petty as such. Obviously, I mentioned my grandfather in the speech, but that was a motivating factor for me. That gave me an extra bit of drive. And funny enough, within a week or so, I'd already received a letter from Benson Hedges, with Kevin Norton was the tournament director, saying I'd got a wild card for next year. Mm-hmm. So you don't know, and it's just during that week, my mum and dad and aunt and uncle and cousins had came over for the whole week to Plymouth. So even if I lost first match, they were there for the week. It didn't matter. So the week they choose to take a holiday and a bit of snooker, I end up going all the way and winning maybe just after my grandfather dying. And I said, particularly in the quarterfinals, Peter Ebden missed 2 simple blues to beat me. And even the semi-final and final were close. I could have easily lost many times. So I don't know if you call that destiny, or I had created myself by believing or being determined I was going to win the tournament 6 weeks beforehand. That just, obviously, I've done the same thing in events following on and didn't go on and win them. But maybe just, I don't know, that timing or something went right. But I had a lot of, I suppose, inspiration, a lot of determination to prove him wrong, because I felt he made a bad decision. And to be fair, I proved him right.
So I mean that it sounds like you were confidence driven then, because if you won that ranking event, a lot of things were happening. Did you feel that really did that improve your game and give you a lot of confidence when you had that ranking event win?
If anything, looking back, I probably didn't get enough. I probably didn't get enough confidence out of it. I probably didn't get the confidence out of and belief that I should have. If anything, it more felt a bit like a relief that I would think that I'd won a tournament. Maybe subconsciously I thought that, like, it, and it still applies now. If you answer the question, was Fergal O'Brien any good? You go, well, he won a ranking event, so that obviously separates you a little piece. Obviously, you can do a lot more and win world titles. But I mean, for me, probably that was just a bare minimum with regard to making it, is that I'd won a ranking event. But I never really pushed on, probably as much as I certainly didn't do any harm, but I didn't really. I probably didn't get the bounce out of it like you thought I might have done or should have done.
Right. Now, just touching on confidence, Jordan, we're going to come over to you. Oh, he's disappeared again, but he's popping in and out. I reckon he's picking his nose or something there, Fergal. I don't know what he's doing. We're going to get him back in. Oh, here he comes back in again. I think, the thing is, it's a lot of it is about. I think a lot of it, this is the reason why I touched on your winning confidence. Confidence is a big, big thing. And I think it has a reflection on a lot of players. And this is where I'm going back over to Jordan here. If we can get him on the bloody screen, But I think a lot of it's about confidence, and let's see if we can get it back in again, because I try, tell you what, we need some proper professional broadcasting equipment here. But no, you touched on some very good points there. Right, Jordy, we're going to try and keep you in the stream here, mate. You keep coming off now and again. So that could be maybe the phone or whatever. But we were talking about confidence. Anyway, well, I'm not going to worry about him for the minute. He's not that exciting, Fergal.
I wouldn't say that.
We'll get him in. We'll get him in here. Yeah, no. Do you want to try and maybe, Jordan, if you want to try and join through the computer or something? I don't know why that. Are you in a good signal area there? Can you hear me all right? Jordan, can you hear me? No, I can't. I don't think he can hear us very well. Let's see if I can get him in.
My sound keeps going off, guys.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but sometimes the sound and picture just goes
all right. Okay, yeah, no, it's probably, it might be a connection. We're just talking about confidence, sir. So I'm just going to turn over to you for 3 minutes, mate, if you can hear me all right. You were on the tour nearly 10 years ago.
2 seconds.
You want to come off and come on again? Are you getting nothing? Can you hear me? Absolutely nothing. Do you want to go off and try and log on through the computer, or do you have access? Do you have access to a computer at all? Maybe try and change position, go to another part of the room or something and reconnect. Anyway, look, we'll come back to you, Fergal. And that there. But he'll probably keep coming in and Joe. It's bloody irritating because it throws your momentum way out the window here. You don't know where you are.
Yeah.
But
just ask another question and let me know.
Obviously, I know, absolutely. I've got to keep you going. So where do you think, where are you at the moment in the game? Where do you feel where you are at the moment presently?
well, obviously ranking wise, obviously I'm under pressure. I'm outside the top 64 with, well, hopefully the world championship still to come. So obviously you need certainly to win probably definitely one, but maybe 2-3 matches to keep my place. But mentally in myself, I'm nowhere near done. You know, like I'm not. If I fell off the tour, I'd go straight to Q school. I'd have no issue with that. So I'm not ready. I may fall off, but I'm not ready to retire. I don't feel in any way I'm done. And obviously, I'd love to stay on. I think my game is good enough, and I still think I've got more years in me. But obviously, I need results to give myself that opportunity to. But I haven't thought about retiring or stop playing. I just want to keep playing as long as possible. So the decision might be taken out of my hands, but I just want to keep playing. I'm still very enthusiastic, still putting the work in, still feel I can improve. And as I said, as you get older, you learn more. So I still feel, look, at some point when you're 70 or 80, you have all the experience in the world, but you physically can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I still can do it. I can still play every shot and do whatever I could 30 years ago. So I don't feel any diminishment in my skills, but obviously other factors, doesn't necessarily mean you get the results that you want.
You play just like Steve Davis. It did in so many ways. Steve Davis carried on playing as long as he could. I can't remember when Steve came out. I think was he in his mid-50s?
Yeah, mid-50s.
Yeah, I mean, you're provisionally ranked 69. I think you're provisionally ranked 69. So, I mean, you're close there anyway. So perhaps maybe having a little bit of a reflection on the end of this season because of what's going on at the minute. It doesn't look like it's going to finish really, unless we get the Worlds behind doors. But I mean, how have you felt this season in particular?
Again, kind of what I said earlier. I definitely think. Which I've probably done the last couple of years to my detriment. I've just been playing too much on my own. And as I said, when you play too much on your own, you're not sharp enough. So there's been times I've went to a tournament and I've nearly felt like I had to win my first couple of matches to get up to speed or sharpness to be where I want to be. That's problem A. But problem B is if you play too much on your own, as if you can effectively do your head in. So an example would be you want to work on your long potting. So you practice a shot today and you put it 9 out of 10. Brilliant. So ideally, if you're playing somebody tomorrow, you'd be quite confident. But if you weren't playing somebody, what can happen to me is, certainly by my perfectionist nature, is I think, okay, I got 9 out of 10. How did I miss one? And in trying to find that perfection, you go searching where you shouldn't be searching. And all of a sudden now you're back to putting a 3 or 4 out of 10. And you've literally, went down the other side of the mountain. So you went from a lack of skill or knowledge, went to, basically doing your own head in as such. So if you had a better balance, basically, if you play a day or two on your own, that should be more than enough. And then you go off and play for 3 or 4 days. And I said, when you're playing the likes of, but to be fair, Jordan, Michael, Giorgio, and particularly Mark Allen and Shaun Murphy, the areas where you have to work on your game get highlighted so much because your break off or first safety can be end of frame, or if you miss on 60, they step in and clear. So if so certainly going forward, the best way to describe it is I'd probably play for 3 or 4 days against people, and a day or two on my own, working on areas for improvement, and then play more people, so on, so on. But as I said, I'm still very enthusiastic and feel I can play well, but my preparation, whilst I've worked hard, I probably haven't worked as smart as I could have.
I'm just going to go over to Jordan in a wee second. Just one thing I want to ask you before I leave you there, Fergal. I understand that you are practicing. Are you practicing quite a bit with Shaun? Has he sharpened you up a bit, or in that sense?
Yeah. Obviously, he's such a good player. So we're probably, in a sense, we've different main strengths as such. Obviously, he's maybe more attacking and probably better long putter than me, whereas I'd be more safety minded and tactical minded. So, I'd probably
dragging that one down, you're dragging that one down, aren't you?
Pardon?
Shaun's such a strong putter and a quick player.
Very good.
You could be destroying that man with your very tough match play, you know.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of a trade-off, but it's been good even sometimes, apart from actually playing him. And obviously, if you beat Shaun in the best of 9, that's a great confidence booster because your game has to be at a very high level to beat him. But also, if you lose to him, chances are you still would have learned a couple of things. So sometimes we might be after a game or during a frame, and I might say to him, it might be my shot, and I'd say, in a match, should I go for this? Would you go for this? If I don't go for this shot, do you regard that as a sign of weakness? And for certain shots, he'd say, oh, no, safety is a good option there. Or no, he says, look, I don't care what the score is. You have to be going for that. If you turn down that kind of shot, you're basically saying, I'm lacking in confidence. So picking his brain at certain ideas as well, apart from seeing his preparation and also just actually watching him strike the cue ball and his technique. Even subconsciously, you probably get a little bit smoother.
He's very, Shaun is not only a great cueist, he's very technical too. He can go in, if I had Shaun on here, Shaun would talk me onto the table about snooker. He's very technical, he's very, very clever. And by the way, I spoke to Shaun a couple of times when I was with Jordan in some of the practice areas there and he had nothing but good things to say about you. Very return compliments, mate. He enjoys playing with you. You can see your experience. And he actually said to me he's gained some things from you. So it's also good to hear. Now, just before we come back to you, I want to get over to Jordan here before he disappears again.
I don't mean to, although I want to get rid of
I know you don't, mate. It's good to have you on here, Now, Jordy, you were on the tour only for about a season, nearly 10 years ago. It probably wasn't a very nice experience for you because there wasn't as many events, and you were, I don't know, you were sort of thrown in there at the deep end, weren't you really? What are your reflections on that?
Well, it really was it was obviously great to turn professional at that time, but it was probably the worst time to turn pro because, as Fergal knows, there was only like 6-7 ranking tournaments to play in, and you had like maybe 6-7 weeks in between matches. So it's not like it is now. The game is in the best shape it's ever been. But back then, in hindsight, it was maybe a little bit, personally, maybe a wee bit too early for me because I was still maturing as a player. But I felt like whenever I turned pro this time around, I feel like I was ready.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough assessment. That's kind of where I was thinking when I was coming with that question there. So here we are, nearly 10 years later. Get yourself through Q school. I know that your amateur game with Patrick was very good. I don't think very many of the players were touching you, mate, in the amateur game between that time. But you did try to get back on the tour through Q school, I think, a few times there. But you made it. Look, you made it in 2018. This is the end, virtually the end of your second season back on the tour. I think we all know we don't have to. We don't need to sort of delve too much into the fact that we know that you have improved and you're a much more mature player because everybody I've spoken to has said that. So what is your reflection? I suppose you could say, just before I ask you this, your first season wasn't great. It wasn't great. It probably wasn't expected to be great because you got a lot of confidence. For me, you're a confidence-driven player. But what's your reflection on the first and second seasons?
First season, well, I lost my first 5 matches as a pro, and after all that, I just sort of like reflected on it and just said, right, but what am I doing wrong here? I'm not practicing enough. I'm not doing this and that right. But after that, I remember I went to Germany and I beat Gary Wilson 4-0, and all of a sudden I just felt like, wow, I can actually play this game. It's not like I've fallen up by the wayside. And then I just grew from that. Beating a player like Gary, just was the start of it. And I started winning a few games, started qualifying for events in China and that. I got off to a slow start, but once I found my feet on the tour, then I just gradually grew in confidence because, as you say, I'm a confidence-driven player,
Yeah, very. I think I saw that very clearly. I could compare maybe another dozen players. I'm not going to mention their names, to you. They're probably perhaps maybe a little bit higher up in the rankings because they've been on the tour a bit longer, but the same age as yourself. I think they're confidence driven too, and I think that I can't help think that a lot of players of your generation. I mean, I think what are you? Are you 32? You're 30. You're 32 at the moment.
2 years young.
Yep.
Yeah.
You look a lot older, by the way, but I'm not going to go there. All right. Okay.
I'll go there.
You know, I don't know what you're smiling about, Fergal. I'll touch on your age in a minute, but but yeah.
Get away with it.
But yes, I think that, having sort of looked at your game, and I'm not just particularly sort of focusing on you to that extent because I've come to some of the tournaments with you and tried to help you, but you do it does seem to be a confidence thing, and perhaps maybe sometimes there's something going on when you're out there at the venue that you're just trying to overcome. Because I remember you saying to me that, if you start winning a few matches, you'll gain a lot of confidence. And it was a big, huge thing for you because you started beating very, very good top 16 players. And then, obviously, you can do that and you can go as far as you want to go. So what else do you think you need to do?
Well, as you said, I've beaten a few top 16 players. So I feel like I belong there. It's just I haven't pushed on. I haven't got past the last 32 of an event. I've just been consistently, as Fergal knows, how important the first matches are in each tournament, because they're the ones to get you the points. But if I have had a big win against a big player, then I haven't followed it up, so maybe lacking a wee bit of consistency, which is disappointing, but that's something I'm still trying to work on. It's very tough in the game nowadays, because the standard's so high. But the bottom line is, I believe I belong there, and I just got to keep practicing and working hard,
I think at the moment, just touching on the both of you, I think, Fergal, you're obviously provisionally ranked 69, so you're looking to, obviously get a few points, maybe perhaps, there's every reason why the World Championships will be completed, whether it's behind doors or not. It looks like it will. Possibly. So the both of you are sort of hanging on a wee bit there. Jordy, you're I think you're provisionally ranked. Is it 70? Is it 74 or?
74, but I'm in the top 4 currently in the 1 year.
1 year.
Yeah.
1 year list. So
realistically, that's my best chance of staying on. So I'm on borderline, but touch and go.
A little bit of pressure on the both of you, really, with all this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going on around here.
Yeah, it's hard to see. The more you actually think about the World Championships, it's hard to see it actually maybe being, or you can see problems for being played because as we're speaking, Boris Johnson is laying out like the roadmap as such. But if you get to mid-July when the qualifiers are on, you're just wondering, well, apart from even hotels, will there be restaurants open, practice facilities open, and also from what I believe is that anybody that comes into the UK, actually with the exception of people from the Republic of Ireland, but anybody that comes into the UK has to quarantine for 2 weeks.
Right.
So then if you're coming from, obviously, I think there's nearly 40 players will have to travel to the UK. Mm-hmm. So then if you're due to play, we'd say July 19th for the qualifiers, if you're coming from China or Europe, now you'd have to be in the UK from July 5th. But you'd be quarantined for 2 weeks, so you're not leaving your hotel room for 2 weeks. You're not coming over on the 5th and going to the academy the next day. So instead of coming over 2 weeks beforehand without any practice, now you've probably to come 4 weeks over. So you'd have 2 weeks in England, in the UK, in quarantine, in a hotel room. Restaurants may or may not be open. There mightn't be any shops. There won't be cinemas open. There won't be shopping centres open. So you have to stay in your hotel room for 2 weeks. Then you have 2 weeks practice. And as Jordan well knows, if you have 2 weeks off, it probably takes you the guts of the 2 weeks to get back to where you were. There's no great sense of peaking. And me and Jordan with 4 weeks to go with the World Championships, there's no way in a million years we'd say, right, we're 4 weeks to go, I'll take the first 2 off. Mm-hmm. So I actually think, so if you have a Chinese player or European player playing somebody from England, in the qualifiers, straight off the bat, that's very unfair because the English player, now, of course, if he can get into his own club, because Boris Johnson might say clubs, conservative clubs, snooker clubs, sports clubs, mightn't open until August 1st, September, we don't know. But even if they are open, an English player can get into his club every day for 4 weeks and practice as much as he like. somebody and go home for his own dinner. Somebody from China or Europe comes, and for those 4 weeks, he either comes for 2 weeks and doesn't practice, or he comes for 4 weeks. He's 2 weeks without practice, and then he's 2 weeks literally chasing his tail if he can get into a club. So the guy from England, his 4 weeks preparation is far, far superior to the furthest have to travel. So all of a sudden, to me, that seems unfair, and he's being penalised because he doesn't live in the UK. Whereas if we say it's being postponed until September, October, well, then certainly by August, you would think the UK is up and running, shops are back open, restaurants are back up. Now, there's still obviously be restrictions, but I wouldn't fancy, by fortune, because I'm in the Republic of Ireland, I won't have to quarantine, but I wouldn't fancy playing the World Qualifier, having to go 4 weeks in advance, which could over the month would easily be another 4 or 5 grand worth of expenses. I've 2 weeks stuck in a hotel room, going nowhere because I'm in quarantine. And then when I go to practice, where am I going to practice? There'll be loads of players there. Can I practice as much as I like? Will there be social distancing? Will they use all the tables? Can I practice with somebody? Have I to play on my own? And all of a sudden, I just think these dates have become available because the Olympics aren't on and BBC are available and they're trying to shoehorn them in. Whereas I think World Snooker said, what is the best for the game that we can more or less guarantee player safety, more or less give them every fair opportunity to prepare. You would play it in September or October. But because this date has come in July and August for the Crucible, and it's still going to be behind closed doors, they're trying to squeeze it in at least.
Yeah. Right, Jordan, what do you think?
No, I just touched on what Fergal said. Whenever you weigh everything up, I just think he just summed it up in one. I just cannot see how it can go on ahead. Obviously, me and Fergal were discussing this yesterday, and obviously we have to have the mindset of preparing for the qualifiers as if they were going on ahead. But realistically, I just can't see this improving anytime soon. I think we're talking at least September, October time. But if it does happen, well then good luck to whoever's organising it, because they've got a really hard job in their hands as to how they're going to go about this.
Well, I think that's pretty much summed it up there, lads. I mean, go on, Fergal. Sorry.
Yeah, one other factor is you hear about like the other sports and the steps they're making, and once it's behind closed doors, and there's going to be no guests or no managers or coaches there, and in theory, you're opposite chairs and there's a referee, but if you take it to the letter of it, we are still touching the same cloth, the same wood, the same rest. So if a player has it or it's there, it's going to happen. But also, if at any point in the qualifiers of the Crucible, one player gets the virus, that's the tournament over. Because if one qualifier has it, no qualifiers can go to the Crucible because they have to quarantine as well. And as I was also thinking, if you wake up on the morning of your match, say for argument's sake, me and Jordan, I'll use Jordan as an example. Jordan wakes up on this morning to play his match that he has to win to stay on the tour, which maintains his career, and he's got 1 or 2 symptoms of the virus. The right thing for him to do is go straight to the hospital. If there's no testing at the venue, for argument's sake, is go to the hospital and get tested. But there's every chance Jordan, like us all, would say, oh, look, I'll probably be okay. He'll go ahead and play his match and put other players and officials' health in jeopardy just because he has to win, because this tournament has to be played, which is a poor decision by Jordan, which I totally understand, but the players' safety is paramount. So it's no point we play this World Championships. We get fantastic viewing figures, but a player gets the virus.
Yeah,
I think,
and again, some of the symptoms aren't so obvious.
I hope we're concerned. I just hope that common sense prevails, because it's all about the players at the end of the day, and the safety is paramount.
Well, yes, that's it, and this is one of the reasons why I think we're probably, it's okay to think a wee bit ahead and to think about what's going to happen, but I think realistically the tournament's not going to be held until long after the summer, lads. I really don't think. I think it is, and I think by that time there could possibly be some testing procedure in by then where they can test you. before you play the event. And if we, especially,
Yeah.
I mean, if we have an antibody test by then, that will tell a lot of you whether some of you have had the virus or had the antibodies. So maybe by that time, which is say what 2-3 months from now, maybe hopefully there'll be a testing procedure where we'll be able to take all that speculation away and concern. Maybe not. What do you think?
Again, it only takes one player, to just test positive, and then the whole tournament's over. And the chances, I hate to say it, but the chances of one player in 128 testing, there could be a chance there because none of us know who has it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And again, some of the symptoms, which is worse, you might have it, but you don't. The symptoms mightn't be that clear. Yeah. But also, if we take it for argument's sake, if the day or two before you're due to travel, say Jordan's girlfriend or my wife comes home from work and says, "Oh, the girl I work with, she's actually tested positive for the virus," then my wife would have to go into quarantine. Would I, because of contact. So again, you're putting me in a position where I have to play this match. I have to win. I could fall off the tour. I could make a poor decision based on chances are I don't have it. So I'm going to say nothing, get on a flight, mix with people, go to practice in a venue, potentially contaminating others just because, again, I have to win it. And it's a poor choice, but the players shouldn't be put in that position. I think if you were, as I said, if I was the chairman of the game and my number one priority is the safety and welfare of the players, you'd say nothing before September 1st.
Well, this is where the testing is going to be vital here. I think if testing,
if you get testing, that might change, of course.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, this is I can't see anything being decided really for at least several months here, in terms of this cup, the Worlds. But the thing is, I think you can't. I don't think anything's going to happen without testing. I don't think any decisions could be made at that level. Anyway, look, we're going to get away from that nonsense for a minute now. I know we have to deal with it. We're going to try and be a wee bit positive here. We're not sure what's going on yet, but we'll just.
Like I said, we all hope the World Championship does go ahead in July, because we all want to get back practicing. But however, the bigger picture is it might just come a month or two too early for where the UK will be. And another thing, also with Boris Johnson, as I was speaking, the snooker clubs themselves, so even the UK players, you might be able to get into their club to practice.
Yeah.
Until maybe July, August. We don't know.
You're getting some praise here, Fergal. Everybody's agreeing with you here online. Maybe you should host a show. Maybe you should host a show. Anyway, I want to get back. I want to touch on your careers a wee bit. And what I want to do is I think just to have a little bit of a reflection. I know you've only had a couple of seasons there, Jordy, since you've got back on it. And obviously, Fergal, you've been on the tour, you've got your career and what have you. Is there any parts of your games that would you feel you'd like to improve on, or you have improved on? Start with you, Fergal.
Well, I suppose you'd always like to score heavier. I've had times where I have scored heavy, and certainly when I've played my best, I have scored heavy. But I suppose if you look at throughout my career, I probably average 10, 15 centuries a season, which is not terrible. But I mean, if you look at the top players, or top 10, they probably average around 50. So straight up, like if I ever had a season where I had 50 centuries, you look out. I'd probably be winning a couple of tournaments and earning, 300-400 grand if you just did those maths. So yes, whilst I can score heavy, I could be scoring heavier more consistently. And I suppose maybe my long putting could be stronger as well, and particularly as the game evolves over the years, people are going for more long putts. You don't want to be seen to refusing shots that, as I said, your opponent thinks you should be going for and showing a sign of weakness. But it's not enough just to go for it. You then need to go for it and get it. And also, once you've got it, then score, because there's no point getting a great long pot being in and missing on 40, because you might as well miss the long pot in the first place, because your opponent's going to, chances are, step in. And particularly over the years, as a big difference between the first 15 years of my career and the next 15 is the first round or two are far harder. So right from the first go, you've got to be on it. And if you're not, you lose, and you could lose quite easily. Whereas there was years, maybe I was in even in the top 16, the first match or two wasn't too bad, and you could maybe nurse your way into the tournament a little piece, but you certainly can't do that nowadays.
Well, I see you as a tough match player. I'm not sure a lot of seasoned professionals or players who've been on the tour really probably enjoy playing you, because you are a tough, gritty match player. You don't give up. You've got a pretty good demeanor really on the table. You don't show emotion that much, and you don't give up either. And I think that I don't think players like that. Now, you may perhaps think, maybe I want to score a lot heavier, but at the same time, you wait for your opportunities. Is that the type of player you are? How I'm expressing you here, is that?
Yeah, I suppose in boxing terms, I don't have that one massive knockout punch that's going to just floor you. I'd be more over the 12 rounds distance. I win on points, because during the match, I can probably go with the ebb and flow of matches and stay the distance and not give in and wear them down.
Yep. And
through discipline and hard work, stay the distance up. I'd be very rare in matches I've effectively beaten myself up. So I'd stay the distance, and when it goes to the distance, I win on points. That's probably a slight generalization, but that's kind of, I feel in a match, even if I'm not playing my very best, I can still maybe outwork them, maybe find a way to win, even if I'm not at my best. But that's probably a fair description, as you said it, Dave.
Tough player. Was it you? I'm not sure about this, Fergal. Is it you that actually has the longest frame in history?
Yes, one or two people have mentioned that to me.
Somebody just sent me a message there. Fergal had the longest frame. Is that right?
I never heard about it.
Still playing, Dave.
Anyway, Jordy, let's switch over to you.
Well, my strengths obviously has always been my scoring. I always play well in practice, but we all want to take the practice game to the match arena. I feel like I don't do that enough, and my scoring will let me down at times. But even if I'm not playing well, I feel like I have a good B game. I can always play good safety and just hook and poke a wee bit. But nowadays you've got to score, and basically what I was saying earlier, I feel like I need to improve that, in order to keep progressing up the rankings.
Absolutely. I think this season, what there is of it, what you could have done, I think you've proved a lot by beating some very good top 16 players.
Yeah.
You had a couple of good matches, which I had a little look at, actually. I think it was your two matches against Dave Gilbert.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you proved a lot there to yourself. Personally, I thought you showed a lot of strength there. I think Dave Gilbert probably lost a bit of confidence really after the first match on that one, because he's a very very talented player, very good match player.
Rate him very highly. He's obviously shot his way up to the top 16, and feel like he belongs there, because I think his game is definitely top 16 material. I think he's going to be there for many years. So to get, I beat him twice within 5 days. So it was definitely a confidence booster, all right. But I lost my next two qualifiers, because they're the only two events that you could have to win two qualifiers to go to, the European Masters and the German Masters. And I lost my next match in both of them. So it was just disappointing, that I didn't follow it up. But like you said, to get 2 wins in 1 week against him was definitely a feather in my cap.
And does this? Look, I see you two lads, and I do actually see two very different types of game. I think, Jordy, you're a good long putter. You're a break builder, confidence driven. Fergal, you've been on the tour so many years. You're a very tough player, very, very good, very strong, very intelligent match player. Perhaps waits for his chances. Perhaps maybe doesn't score as well as you'd like to all the time. And as much in that respect, maybe you've been on the tour all those years, and maybe you feel you could have done a lot better. Do you think that affects your game there? Does that bother you a little bit, the both of you? I mean, Fergal, maybe knowing that you have to work really hard and maybe sometimes dig really deep to get where you want to get, and maybe Jordan, maybe perhaps on your side you make a few mistakes, Fergal.
Sorry, no, it never bothers me having to work hard, whether that's during the preparation, whether that's putting in the 6 hours a day, or traveling to the UK, or traveling up to Antrim to do the best preparation I feel, or during the match. So that's no issue at all. If you say to me you're going to go to play a match, it's going to be 5-4 and it's going to take 4 hours, but you win. Happy days. I'll take it now. But obviously, look, people probably say, yeah, that's typical. But obviously, like everybody, I want to win 5-0 with 5 big breaks. But I've never played, well, as far as I can remember, never really played a match and thought, say I might be 3-1 down at the interval and struggling and poor, and thought, well, I'm not playing well enough to win here. It's not my day. I've never thought that. I feel I can find a way to win, but it's greater concentration, greater discipline, playing more positive, playing more attacking. I feel I can. And of course, even if you make that 3-2, 3-all. So there've been plenty of matches, and even if you go back to the British Open, if you talk about that I won. But I mean, there was 2 or 3 matches I played, and if you watched it, it wasn't pretty. And I never looked like the tournament winner, but I kept winning. And if I win today, I give myself a chance to win tomorrow. And I said, you beat Ronnie O'Sullivan on TV, you beat him 5-2, and you look fantastic. People don't probably realize the day before, probably beating some player ranked 85, 5-4, and just found a way to win. But because so long as I stay in the tournament, I can improve. I've given myself a chance to prove. But like everybody wants to play really well and score heavier, be more attacking. But that's not snooker. And the sooner you accept that's been one of my assets, that I haven't been too hard on myself if I haven't been playing brilliant or good. Just get the job done today, give myself a chance.
Yeah, it's similar to what Fergal's saying there. I think we all take pride in performance, and we're in an entertainment sport. It's nice to entertain as well, but us as players, the number one priority is to win, and it doesn't matter how you win. It's just as long as you win, because wins are hard to come by these days, as Fergal knows, and it's just getting the job done, as Fergal says. Yeah.
So I mean, just touching on something that you mentioned to begin with there, Fergal, when you said you felt as if you were playing on your own there at the beginning of the interview. Obviously, Shaun, I know Shaun's come over quite recently there last year, and this year actually, I think he's come over on the table. Would you prefer to play a lot of solo, or would you prefer to mix it up?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I have been playing too much on my solo. Too much solo. And again, some of that has been by choice. But as I said, over the last 10-year period, with the exception of Ken Doherty, of course, and Shaun the last year or two, the people I generally practice with, apart from Ken, Michael Judge, Joe Delaney, Patrick Wallace, Joe Swale, Colin Gilchrist, Davy Morris, Brendan O'Donoghue, David Hogan, they're all gone. So if I want a game, it's either Ken or Shaun. And for many years, it might have been just Ken. So I might decide, well, I'll play with Ken a couple of days before I go away. But of course, Ken might have had other plans of preparing differently. So the plan I had of playing people 4 days and then a day on my own didn't work out. There wasn't people there, or they had other plans. So you've gone away with a tournament and haven't prepared the way I want. Whereas the lovely thing about going up to Antrim is I turn up there, and for a 3-4 day period, I'm guaranteed in one day I can have which I've done. I have a best of 9 with Mark, Jordan, and Michael Giorgio, or I can play them all day, 3 days in a row for it. And then if I have 4 days up in Antrim and then have a day on my own on Friday, even if I take the weekends off, my game's going to be sharp. And even if it's not sharp, my practice on my own is going to be very good because it's been identified. Because if I go up to Antrim to play Jordan, to play Michael, to play Mark, I've got to be on it and I'm going to be on it from the get-go and all day, which is brilliant, which is where I want to be. So in doing that, and even felt in Gibraltar, by having a few weeks of doing, and to be fair, the first time or two I went up, apart from Mark maybe giving me a hammering, Jordan and Michael were probably beating me as well. Mm-hmm. So I feel the last time or two have been more competitive, if we say, and I felt in Gibraltar I played a lot better, a lot sharper, and scored a lot heavier, which is a byproduct of, if I'm sharp, I'm going to score heavy. You don't go into a match saying, really, I'm going to score heavy today. You're a byproduct of your preparation by playing those really good players and sharpening it up, which forces you to play better. That then I brought that to a tournament. So what Jordan and Michael and Mark have up in Antrim is fantastic. So if the Worlds goes ahead in July, 2 weeks beforehand, if I'm allowed to travel across the border more than 50 kilometers, I'll be up there for 2 weeks trying to battle with those boys every day to get my game as best as I can, to prepare as best as I can.
No, you've some very good, before I come to you, Jordy, very, very good points there, Fergal. Fantastic. I feel quite inspired actually to have you on here. But you would stay a couple of nights, perhaps maybe stay a couple of nights in Antrim. But this is one of the things that I've been saying to a lot of young players like Jordan, and it's just to encourage, the new professionals on the tour, if they don't get past those qualifying rounds, travel and play as many different players as you can, because all it does is strengthen your game. So, I mean, I you could say, Jordy, I probably encouraged you a bit too much, to play in the pro-ams, to sharpen yourself up a wee bit. And some of the wee lads in conditions probably were, the conditions of the tables are not quite right, but coming over and playing other professionals like Jimmy and Mark, you've been coming over playing with Jimmy Robertson and that there, but if you're not winning those first round matches, very important to keep traveling and keep playing. Jordy.
Yeah, well, obviously traveling is part and parcel of the professional game, and like you say, Dave, you've had me over playing in your pro-ams, which is great, and I've managed to sneak in a bit of practice with Jimmy Robertson and Mark Davis, which is invaluable, really, because it's a change of scenery as well. Instead of, I'm not saying that it's perfect practice conditions in the club I'm in, but it's nice to get away to different places. I've been down with Fergal a couple of times, and I've travelled over to England to play different players. It's nice to, because you're playing on different tables as well, and you're playing different style of players as well. So it's only going to benefit your game.
Mm-hmm. And do you think it has? Do you think it sharpened you up?
Yeah, absolutely. Because whenever I started, traveling over, playing like Jimmy and Mark, my results have improved, over the course of the 2 seasons. Getting off to a slow start, and then I sort of changed it a wee bit and mixed it up and playing different players and stuff. So yeah, it was all good in the end.
And perhaps even. Go ahead, mate. Sorry.
If I just think about Jordan, in the last 2 years, I'd say Jordan, and he was a very good player before, but Jordan's game has improved at least 14 points in the last 2 years, guaranteed. I've seen it from practicing with him. And beforehand, if we take before to, I'm sure he worked as hard. He wasn't really, he always worked hard. But it's not just the work he's putting in the hours; it's the quality of. And if day in, day out, he's playing Mark Allen, and now as a bonus the last year or so, he's off Michael Giorgio. But I mean, you can break off 3 times against Mark Allen and lose 5-0. Like that. And he's playing another set and he beat you 5-1. And he might have had one visit for the day. And I went up there and I've come home after losing 15-3. And you're probably like, well, I only won 3 frames. I probably only could have won 3 or 4 of the other ones. So as a result of that, you become so much more sharper. So the next time you go up to play Mark Allen, on your way up in the car, you're thinking, I've got to be on it today. From the break off, you can't afford a break off because that would be the frame over. If you miss a long pot and let him in, that's the frame over. If you're in and miss, if you miss on 40.
Why is Mark Allen so good? I think he's very dull.
I think he's put. Oh, he's dull. I seen his comment there. He's got a lot of Z.
He's watching this, boys. there's nothing exciting about Mark Allen. He's up there. He's at the top, and sooner or later, boys, you'll catch up with him. Don't worry about it. It's all
As
right.
I said, Jordan having the chance to practice with Mark every day, and Michael George is the reason why he's improved over the last 2 years, because day in, day out, he's preparing very well.
So is it worth you maybe perhaps going down to Dublin play some of the Irish lads, some of the other Irish lads there? Is it worth you? I mean, I can't remember how long it takes. I think it takes a couple of hours, doesn't it? But is it something that you would? I mean, look, you've got Michael. Michael has arrived in Antrim, probably one of the best decisions Michael's made in a long time. The Antrim club's a great club. As you say, you can't get better practice partners than Mark. And even if you can mix it up, if Fergal can come up for a couple of days, I mean, even if you can go down and play Ken, Fergal, and maybe Shaun, sharpen you up a little bit. It's all getting very nice and cozy there. Do you not think so? Have you frozen up, or is it me?
No, you were talking to Jordan. I think Jordan's frozen up. But to be fair to Jordan, Jordan has come down. Jordan has come down a few times to me, and we've had, he'd come down for lunchtime. We did 2 or 3 best of 9s. He stays over, and we play all day the next day, and then he goes home. So to be fair, go back a few years, Jordan has come down to me to practice.
Well, I think it's nothing but good. I think that has been one of the reasons why maybe perhaps players like Jordan haven't been as maybe. It's probably one of the reasons why, Jordy, it's probably one of the reasons why you haven't been perhaps maybe more consistent, especially in the first season. Because.
Cut off there, Dave.
No, that's okay, mate. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, just the Wi-Fi went off there.
No, you haven't missed much. Fergal was talking to me, so you didn't miss much. But
talking covers as usual.
he was talking about his ducks in the garden, so it was all right. Don't worry about it. But no, we're just touching on traveling and playing when you're not competitive, when you don't get the opportunity to get to play in those second round matches. I think there's a very nice thing going on there in Antrim with you all, and I think that it'll do nothing other than sharpen you up a bit. For you personally, I think it was just lack of matches, and the first season, because you struggled to win so many of your matches in the first season.
Yeah,
but you've proved this season in the 1 year list, so you've toughened yourself up in that respect. Right, just want to get through a couple of wee questions here, lads, because as usual, Fergal's been talking so much. He's taken up half the whole show. I can't get a word in. Anyway, right. So, these are general questions which I've mapped out because they're quite important. A lot of the guys on here generally ask the same questions over and over again. So, in terms of formats and things like that, if I was to say best of 7s or best of 9s, what would be your response?
9.
I think Fergal will touch on this. If he remembers the European Masters qualifiers, first of all, I prefer best of 9s all day, but we had best of 9 with no interval, and I don't think there was one match that was lagging behind or anything like that there. I think everyone was in the time slot, so I think the way forward is best of 9s with no interval. But I think the best of 7s, you can have some events still best of 7s, like at Home Nations, but I think more best of 9s is the way forward. And I think most of them will agree. Yeah.
Fergal.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, it made no impact at all, really, playing that best of 9 without an interval. So I've no issue with all of going forward. I prefer play a best of 9, even if it means there's no interval, than a best of 7.
That's the general view of most of the tour players. I always like to put this in because it's good feedback for World Snooker. I'm not sure they get it quite accurate as all it does. Right, let's touch on tables, cues, and tips. Fergal, what cue do you play with? What kind of tip you got on there?
It's a John Paris cue. I've had it since 2001. It's a 10mm at the top, but as most people know, I've 11mm tip on top of it, which obviously overlaps. So it bamboozles some players' minds when they see it because it's overlapping. But if I had a 10mm tip on a 10mm ferrule and it was flush, that blows my mind. Effectively, that nearly makes me like blind as such. Whereas I like to see the piece overhanging, but it wouldn't be for everybody.
Do you not get a little bit of Fergal? Do you not get a little bit of dust on your tip? No, like a little cobweb or something. It takes you so long to play a shot. I thought maybe you'd have to give it away.
Right, you're allowed one dig. Now you've had it. Now move on.
What type of tips you got on there? What type of tips you use, Fergal?
I've always used the same Elkmaster 11mm. Never changed.
Jordy,
what cue and tips and whatever have? What have you?
Well, I've used a Master Q Pro Putt for the last 8 years, and last season I actually was tinkering with cues. I phoned up John Paris to make me a cue, what I wanted, because basically my head was in the bin. I thought it was the cue's fault, but in reality it was, as Fergal to say, everybody's heads goes in the bin at times. So I've used that for the last 8 years, and I've stuck with it. And I use Elkmaster. I prefer the hard tips rather than, I was used to use soft tips, but I felt like I was miscuing a lot more, so I prefer the hard tips now.
Interesting, very, very interesting. Now, guys, I'm going to ask you a question which I've asked some of the other professionals, and I've had some very, very interesting answers. Especially off Perry and Holty last week. When I asked them this, but I'm going to ask you both. And the question is, who do you both think is the biggest underachiever in the tour? Now, this could be in terms of maybe anything for any reason. Fergal?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe I thought Stephen McGuire would have done more.
Exactly, who was in my head as well. That's who was
but
in my head.
Again, I'm aware that I've won one ranking event and I'm criticizing him, and he's won 7 or 8 ranking event. But I know when I used to go to Stirling when I was with the Ian Doyle management group, I used to go to Stirling. So when he first came on the scene at 16, even before he turned pro, I practiced with him a couple of days, and he just looked like fantastic. And I suppose to be fair, when he won the UK Championship that time in 2004, he looked like a future world champion, a future multiple world champion. Again, we don't know. He may still win, and he has that by any stretch. He's had a very successful career, but I think he was one that you thought would probably definitely win a world title or more titles, and he hasn't.
Interesting. Jordan?
Similar. Stephen McGuire, good tour friend. I've known him many years and know his game. Just think he should have done a lot more. I think once he won that UK title, I thought he was honestly going to dominate. But I think even about himself, that he lets his temperament get the better of him. Another player, I know he's achieved quite a lot, but it's actually my good mate, Mark Allen. I think he should have won a lot more by now because of his talent. But it's just unfortunate in this day and age that you've got like your Ronnie, your Higgins, your Selbys, your Robertsons around that have maybe stopped them winning titles, because he's definitely capable of winning a lot more. And he will in time. So well, I think he's well capable.
It's interesting that you both mentioned McGuire, because both Joe Parry and Michael Holt mentioned McGuire as an underachiever, along, of course, with Matthew Stevens.
Another person I mentioned, I think, is underachieved in recent times, Jack Lisowski. I think for his talent and his cue action and the way he goes about his business, he can be a bit reckless at times, but I think he maybe could have done a wee bit more in recent times.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how you feel about Lisowski there, Fergal, but Lisowski, I couldn't understand why Lisowski didn't come through quicker in the last sort of 5-6 years, but I think he's matured.
I think he should have maybe done something years ago, but only now he's starting to find his feet in the top 16, But I think it's just taken him a wee while just to settle in.
Yeah, I agree. I remember about 6 or 7 years ago having a chat with Andrew Higginson out in China, and he actually asked me the question regarding, he said Anthony McGill or Jack Lisowski, and the way I answered was, I think McGill's going to be a great player, but I think Lisowski's going to be a superstar.
Yeah,
and that never materialized. I thought Lisowski would win more, but also with the exception probably of Ronnie, so his manner, the way, even if the way he falls on the shot and plays, it looks the most simple, the most natural, the most easy on the eye. So not only did you think he was going to win, but he'd win with style. But as I said, winning with style is for down the road. He needs to win and be more consistent. But to be fair to him, he seems the last year or two have been working on it harder, and he's knocking on the door. And certainly you could, if you were taking a bet, you would say yes, that Jack Lisowski will win a ranking event next season. But he hasn't. He's still plenty of time. And again, as people's careers are getting longer, so we don't know what the next 10, 15 years may bring for Jack. Could be his 30s he starts to bloom. But you would have thought he would have won one by now, and maybe a couple, and been one of the big stars of the game.
And I know he's practicing with Judd at the minute, which is definitely going to stand him in good stead, going forward. I just think he's a fantastic player to watch as well.
Let's just touch on those boys at the minute. Why is Ronnie and Judd as good as they are? Why are they so good? Why? What have they got that nobody else has?
They've got a gift. They've got a natural born.
Is it because they're hitting the centre of the weight ball better than anybody else, or because they're like these machines in their brains and they just like tear people apart and everybody's scared of them because they're so good? Why are they so good, Fergal?
Well, firstly, with regard to Judd Trump, that's certainly not a technique that you would in any way copy or advise or teach. But I think a great part of that reason, look, they've obviously undoubted talent, but I think because they started so young is a massive difference. And again, if you read these kind of books, what they say, to be excellent at anything, you need to have 10,000 hours of practice. If Ronnie O'Sullivan started and Judd Trump started playing at 8, by the time they're 16, 17, they already in fact have their 10,000 hours clocked in as such. Whereas if you started playing 13, 14, 15 and don't play as much because you're still in school, by the time you play 10,000 hours, you may be 23, 24. So you would argue they've already got a bit of a jump on you a few years, apart from their talent. And then if they continue also working hard, so that probably why they had so much success so early. And like Tiger Woods being a classic example of youth golf, having success so early just breeds success, and winning becomes a habit, and the greater expectancy and greater demands, and providing they keep working hard, just snowballs effects. They're coming in with great games, used to winning, fearsome reputations, backing it up with great practice, working hard, winning more tournaments. That's probably a great start. I said by the time they were 16, they were brilliant, and obviously just continue working hard. Like Judd didn't have all the answers, and it's taken him a while to become the player we thought he could and would become.
Years, didn't
it? As a starting base, they're playing so young, so early. It's certainly an advantage.
Great players. They need to work on their personalities a little bit, but probably the most exciting players to watch. Jordy, Ronnie, Judd, what is it? What is it about them? What is it?
Well, obviously, we all know that Ronnie's the most naturally gifted player we've ever seen. People say that he doesn't practice, but he can fool anybody. He practices, trust me.
Wasn't he got like 120 tables all over the UK?
Yeah, I know. Well, obviously, Ronnie's Ronnie, and he's just great, and he's worked hard in his game over the years, but he's backed up his natural talent. Became the greatest player that's ever lived. with Judd, like Fergal said, it took him a good few years to find his feet in the tour. I think he'll admit himself that he was maybe doing going to Vegas a little bit too much. Instead of practicing, he was going on a wee holiday here and there. But the last few years, he's really knuckled down, and he's got his brother Jack on board, and I think that's really changed his career. You know, because he's dominating. You know, and he's the one to beat in my opinion. Now, he's just such a great player. Yeah.
I've asked some of the players this in the past. I mean, what's it like? I mean, I'm not sure. I know you've played, Ronnie, Fergal. I mean, I mean, this goes for Trump too. By the way, I know you've played Trump there, Jordy, just a few months ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they must be very intimidating to play against. They must be.
Funny enough, what I'm about to say will probably surprise you, but I always felt playing O'Sullivan is the easiest match to play mentally, because there's no second guessing or planning. It's like going out to run against Usain Bolt. The gun goes, you have to run as fast as you can from the gun to the tape. And it's similar with you play O'Sullivan. Your safety has to be excellent. Your long potting has to be excellent. And when you're in, you can't miss. So I've always found it easy to play because the task is so clear. You need to start well. And even if you start well and you're 3-1 up, you need to continue going because it could turn at any stage. So I've always enjoyed playing him. Plus, if you are getting beaten by him, he's still so nice and attractive to watch. But, you know, I've always enjoyed playing him because it's so... If you're playing somebody maybe lower ranked, you can overthink how you play or tactics, whereas O'Sullivan is just simple.
I could see, Fergal, you torturing Ronnie on the table. You have about half an hour you'd want to shake your hand. Anyway, touching on guns, every time I watch you live, I feel like getting my guns out. Anyway, Jordy, let's get over to you.
No guns.
Sorry, what do you want to ask me, Dave?
The intimidation of Trump and O'Sullivan.
Well, I've only played Trump. I've never played Ronnie.
Yep.
Whenever I played him, obviously, it was his first match as world champion. I played him out in China. I wasn't so much intimidated. I just knew what they expect, you know. But it was interesting to see how he would cope his first match being world champion, and he just picked up from where he left off. He played amazing against John Higgins in the final of the Worlds. His first match against me, I think he started off with 2 centuries. It can be intimidating if you let it get to you, but you know what they expect from players like that, and you just know, as Fergal says, from ball one, you've just got to be on it. You know you've got to score. You know you can't afford to miss. So yeah.
Look, listen, these guys are good, right? We got a combination question here. It's the question that's just come in on the screen. This is something I was going to ask you anyway. The Chinese guys are coming in. They're very talented. Some of the young Chinese guys are really, really talented. Okay. They're coming in from the Far East. They're coming in thick and fast. They're taking over the academies all over the UK. And how long is it going to take before they win the World Championship? And who's it going to be? And when?
Well, I still don't. It won't be within the next 5 years anyway. I don't think.
I don't think so.
Possible exception maybe of Bing Tao, because he has his game. Well, he's still so young. His game is a bit more polished. He's more of an all-round game that you could see. His game is a bit more suited to maybe, you know, going the full 17 days. But I just don't see anybody in the next 5 years from China, for argument's sake, beating Trump in the quarters, Ronnie in the semi, and Selby in the final, to use an analogy. There's a couple of Sing Tong and a couple of those young guys. Certainly within 10 years, I could definitely see them. They're so talented, but still so raw. And similar to Trump, it might take them a little bit longer to get all the pieces of the jigsaw in place. But you know, there is plenty of them. But I haven't seen any of them. I've seen a couple I think could be world champion. with the exception of Ding, there hasn't been a player from China I said I'd take a bet on he will become world champion. There's been plenty of them, but not so many superstars out of, despite the numbers. But again, that may well change in the next 10 years or so.
Jordy?
I think with Ding, obviously he's the benchmark. I think he's just maybe got a wee bit too much weight on his shoulders with the.
Has he lost it? What's happened to Ding? Where's he gone?
I think he's got way too much money. I just think sometimes he loses interest very easy. So I can't see anybody in the next few years, maybe from the Chinese end, being world champion. I know that a couple of players who stand out for me, who are well capable of maybe doing it in the future. Fergal just mentioned one, Zin Tong. I think he's got a great natural ability. But I think the one that's impressed me the most is your wee man Yu Long. I think he's got a very good all-round game. I think it's very polished. I think he goes about the table very well. Looks like he knows what he's doing. So I just, but there's so many in there. There's so many that are capable. But it's hard. Whenever you ask world champion material, I can't see it at the minute. Within the next few years, anyway.
Look, I want to get some of the Irish lads through. I want to see some proper. Look, we've got some good young Irishmen coming through. I think from both sides of the border. I'm not going to be funny here or anything. There's a lot of talent out there, and it needs to get on the tour. We got Aaron Hill, we got Ross, we got Robbie McGuigan.
Yeah,
through.
If you're making a prediction of Robbie McGuigan, is a guy I look at and go, that guy can and will win a world championships.
Yeah, 100%. Because I'm lucky
that he's still very young, and only time will tell. But that kid is special. He's got a great game, great temperament, but also the fact that obviously his relationship with Mark, his learning time will be reduced because Mark will be giving him so much advice. So everybody else, a lot of young players will have to make mistakes and learn from them. There's a lot of, probably 50% of the mistakes players make, he won't make because Mark, having made it himself, will be able to advise him. So I think in time, he looks without trying to put pressure on him, but he looks a fantastic prospect, super player. And he's only 15. Yeah. What will he be like, all things being, what will be like a 10 year? I'm not saying within 10 years he'll win the Worlds, but if he keeps going, him at 25, savage player. Savage.
Yeah. I was just going to I'm very lucky that I started to see him club facilities as him, and I've seen him develop over the last few years. I think he's been coming into the club since he was 9, and amazingly enough, I know he's got Mark as a stepfather, to mentor him, but I think Mark will admit himself that Robbie just done it all himself. It was all self-taught. He just picked up the game so quickly, and I think the way he goes about the table, it shows that he's just developed a natural ability, natural hand-eye coordination. So I think he's definitely well capable of. He's got a very bright future, that's for sure.
Yeah,
very good words there for Robbie. I don't know whether he's watching or not, but
I also think as well, Aaron Hill and Ross Bullman both from Cork. They're two fine players as well. I can see them being, again, you look at future world championship, you look at them, and I could see them having careers for the next 20, 30 years. The two of them are very good as well.
Very, very impressive indeed, yeah.
I think, that's lads, I'll be absolutely honest with you. I don't watch a lot of live snooker, and because I struggle with it a wee bit, but I do watch a lot of the kids coming through. And when I run the competitions, it's always a pleasure to see the young lads coming down and getting involved in the competitions. I mean,
I think it's very important that they get the opportunity. Like if the three of them there were in the shootout, that's massive experience for them. If they don't learn something from that, there's something seriously wrong. Just no matter what happens, just enjoy it. And they've sampled a bit of the atmosphere, and I think that's very important. They know what they expect the next time,
I think there's a lot of talent there, and I think finances stop them from doing what they want to do too, boys. I shot a wee video with Aaron Hill there at the Pro-Am last year. It's on the YouTube channel if anybody wants to take a look at it, But, it's very clear that he needs, he does need, a lot of these young players need support. They need support, and if they get the support, then they can go and play in the Challenge Tour.
Takes the pressure off, because the expenses are a big factor. You need the right people around you, and you need people with money. Because it's just so expensive nowadays. To fulfill your dream. That's where I think, maybe Barry Hearn's going wrong. I know he won't change, money for first round losers or anything like there. But I think
Barry won't.
I think that's stopping people from playing at their best, because they're always under pressure to make a living, which it's all ahead of these young players, in the future, and I think that needs to look at a bit more.
Well, that's why I encourage them to come and play in the back-to-back Pro-Ams as amateurs, because it does test their nerves. They need to be tested under pressure, and traveling is a big part of what you guys do. It's very, very big. The psychological effects that it has on you is when you go to the venue and dealing. And Fergal, you know this all too well. You could write a book about it because you've been on the tour for 30 years, for goodness sake. Right, boys, I'm going to finish off with one last question because we've run over time. And by the way, this has been very quick. They always go very quick, and the both of you has put a lot of information on here. So I hope that this is the other reason why we do these videos. We do it for the players. We do it for the young players so they can look back and have a little listen and listen to players who have just come on the tour, or who have been on the tour for a very long time, get a little bit of an insight into the characters. They don't have to be exciting. Fergal thought I was going to touch on there, but they have a lot of different areas in their game of expertise. And I think if some of the young guys were to actually stop and listen, just listen, and pay attention, then they can maybe develop a little bit of control over their game. Anyway, we're going to finish off with this. I asked this as a general. I'm not going to get too much detailed into this. We've got 128 professionals on the tour. Okay. Now there is mixed feelings about this, about a lot of the lower ranked professionals, especially young players just getting on the tour, about the seeding. Okay. So now everybody goes in that 128. Now I personally don't think it's fair. I don't think it's working. And I don't think it's working because if you look at the 32, the bottom 32 out of that 128, they're not making any money at all. So when you look at that structure, lads, I see a problem. And the only reason why I see a problem is because I see a bunch of players down there. All right, it might only be a third of them. But the thing is that they're not making any money, and it's a problem that needs to be fixed. So is this a seeding problem? How do we fix that, or is it a problem? Fergal?
I wouldn't know. I don't overly think it's a problem as such. I understand. There's probably more events they could maybe have where, obviously, if you're a young, using Aaron Hill as an example, if he's on the tour next year in his first 3 or 4 tournaments, he plays Selby, Ding, Trump, and Robertson. Chances of him winning any matches is very slim. But that's slightly depending on the look of the draw. There'll be other matches where he'll play in and around. So maybe there could be a tournament or two where, like the old days, there was a couple of rounds. So Aaron Hill might play 1 or 2 matches before he plays in a top 64, top 30, maybe 1 or 2 of those. But if the rankings are over 2 years, so if over 2 years you play 35 tournaments, you can't really say, I got really bad draws over 35 events. And again, while it might be an exception, if you plunked Ronnie O'Sullivan into this system, he'd get through. Ronnie O'Sullivan came through. There were 700 players. He'd to win 74 matches in 76 days just to make the top 100. He did it. If you're good enough, ultimately you're going to come through. And over the 2 years, you're going to get enough opportunity. Now, I know I'm not making it sound easy because I know it is difficult, but I think if over 2 seasons you have 30-odd tournaments, you can't always be getting bad draws. And again, the cream of the crop would have come. You give any system you like to an O'Sullivan, a Higgins, a Williams, they would have come through. Now, I know you want more people coming through, and you want it as fair as possible. So maybe a few tournaments could be as we. And to be fair, the World Championships, if it goes ahead this year, there's 4 matches. Round 1, you have 4 matches to qualify, whereas the last 2 years it's been 3. So they'll have a first round, a second, and then they'll play a top 64 player. So that in some events that'll be fairer, and it's a valid point, but not enough of an excuse over 2 years. If you're good enough, you'd come through.
Jordy?
I actually have to totally agree with Fergal there. I think any player that wants to come through will get through in any system. I think there should be a few more tournaments that should be the old tier system. That's just my opinion. I think it should be a bit more fair for the lower ranked players who are maybe struggling. Because you could draw like 6, like my own personal experience. I've had a few tough draws, but I've still managed to win a few of them matches, But I think the bottom line is if you're good enough, you'll come through. Simple as that.
Well, that seems to be the general view of a lot of very experienced professional lads. And I think that, if you look back, Fergal, you'll remember this. Jordy, you will not, because you're not old enough. But Fergal, you'll remember the days of Blackpool where you had you had something like 700 registered professionals, where most of them were so dumb. They were wasting their time. They were just coming along and paying £100 or whatever to play and pay their registration fee. I can't remember what it was, but it was a lot of money. And there was an awful lot of snooker. At least it's not in that place.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, you may argue the point that the young players coming on tour today have it difficult, but I don't think it's any more difficult than, even my first year on tour. Every week there was a tournament, the qualifiers. The year before, Blackpool came into play as such. And again, in Blackpool, you'd be in the Norbert Castle for 3 or 4 months, maybe playing every day, tournament after tournament. So you might get beaten in a tournament today, you have another tournament tomorrow. It was constant play. But the first year I turned pro, you'd have a tournament, you go to Aldershot for a few days, or Bolton or Sheffield, and they're just back to back. And you go to each of those tournaments, you had to win 4 matches to maybe get through. You had 4 matches in Bolton to get to Stoke-on-Trent, and you had 5 matches in Stoke-on-Trent to make the last 64 of the Jameson International or whatever it was back in the day. So it wasn't easy then either. And again, there were so many more players that it was harder to get through. Whereas now you're in the 128 and the money is very good. So if you can win a match or 2, you're picking up 10, 5, 10 grand or something to give you a bit of a boost. But no matter what system, nobody had it easy. Mark Allen didn't have it easy. Ronnie O'Sullivan didn't have it easy. Whatever system. Yes, you always want it to be a bit fairer, but nobody's had it easy. Nobody gets there.
You tortured some of those lads. Fergal, you must have tortured some of those lads at Blackpool.
Yes. It was them or me.
I think the sport in general, I think it's not designed to be easy. I think everybody just wants the opportunity to play, and we've got plenty of that. Like Fergal says, we've got 35 tournaments to play in at least. It seems like there's every week. We're playing. There couldn't be a better time to be a snooker player. I think, and you win a few games, you get a bit of money. Takes the pressure off a wee bit. It's not designed to be easy. It's a professional sport at the end of the day.
Lads, I can't think of a better way to finish this. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you both on. I hope that obviously this gets uploaded on YouTube, so it's a little bit of background stuff. We've had this discussion, so if we live long enough, we can look back on this in 10 years and have a good laugh at ourselves, YouTube will be finished by then anyway, but I'll still be here broadcasting, up and coming new players, and they won't have the time to watch you two. They won't have the time to watch us.
We're good at putting people to sleep.
Right, lads. Thanks very much for joining us. Okay.
Thank you very much.
We'll have,
Thank you very much.
we'll have, next week. We will have. We're going to have next week. Next week we are going to have Peter Lanes and Oliver Lanes, father and son, joining us for a chat. Very interesting. We don't see it very often. Talking about what it's like on the tour. Peter has obviously had a fairly long career in snooker, on and off. And young Ollie has been on the tour for a while. He knows what it's like and how tough it is to get yourself on the board and move up the rankings. And that's the kind of things we're going to be talking to Peter and Ollie about next week when we get them on here. So thanks very much for joining us, guys. And we will we'll see you again next week. Thank you very much.